Nung naramdaman niyo po na may nag-aabot po sa inyo ng sobre, buwan-buwan, ano po ang pakiramdam niyo? Bakit hindi niyo po binuksan?
I must admit that I was uncomfortable with those envelopes, but ang hirap din kasi I'm not sure if others are receiving. Parang ang hirap din.
But with respect to the envelope, you still have it in your possession. Tama po ba?
It's in my home.
Okay. So, dala po ba ninyo ngayon?
Hindi po.
Hindi.
Hindi po.
Hindi.
Hindi po.
Hindi. So, siguro in the next scheduled hearing, may we request na pakidala po ninyo para ano po namin.
I think I don't want to do this, but since siya na yung nagsabi, i-turn over ko na yung envelope. I-turn over ko na yung envelope. I-turn over ko na yung envelope. The envelopes where the money was.
Comsec?
A while ago when I was hearing your testimony on your affidavit, medyo nagiging questionable pa sa akin yung mga dineklara nyo dito. But now that I found out all of this qualification that was given to me by my friend who have watched you testifying on this committee, now I must agree that you really have a ball, no? Ano kayo talaga? You were established on your foundation on the true public service that are being given by you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will not be furthering my my query anymore because I believe that this person who will be testifying to us have this high credibility. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ito po yung pirma ninyo na nakalagay po sa taas ng Gloria Mercado. Pirma po ba ninyo ito?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, alam naman po ninyo. At ito po ay under oath. So,
Yes,
ibig
Mr.
sabihin po nito, at kanina rin po, kayo po ay nag-take ng oath. So, lahat po ng sasabihin ninyo po dito ay dapat pawang katotohanan lamang. Tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Kanina po binanggit po ninyo dito na kayo po ay by the way, ano po yung inyong educational background? Pwede po ba malaman namin?
I have a bachelor's in economics and a master's in national security administration.
National Security
And a
Administration.
PhD po in Chinese studies.
And PhD.
In Chinese studies.
Chinese Studies. Okay. Sabi po ninyo dito kanina, sa inyong number 2 affidavit, I was appointed as DepEd Undersecretary by President Ferdinand Romualdez as recommended by Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte in 2022. Bakit po paano po ninyo nakilala si VP Sara? At bakit kayo po ang napili niya na irekomenda bilang Undersecretary ng DepEd?
We actually went through a selection process. There was an advertisement by the SES board. So we applied, we were interviewed, and then we received a communication that we passed the interview and the process, the selection process, and that we are to assume at a specific date.
Okay. So, ibig sabihin po, prior to your appointment as Undersecretary, hindi pa po nyo kilala si Vice President Sara Duterte. Tama po ba?
Kilala naman po,
kilala
Your
na po
Honor,
ninyo.
kasi she studied at the Development Academy of the Philippines where I
Okay.
was the Dean and the Senior Vice President. She was our graduate student.
So, din po kayo sa DAP?
Yes po, sir. Sir, it's just one.
So, yung buong DAP kayo po yung ano?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Development
It's
Academy,
the
tama
Graduate
po ba?
School of Public and Development Management.
Okay. So, dito po ninyo nakilala si VP Sara?
Yes po. Yes, Your Honor. And
Okay.
I was actually her advisor of her thesis for her master's degree.
Okay.
In connection lang po, ma'am, doon sa tanong ni Chair. Tanong ko lang po, ma'am, nung naramdaman niyo po na may nag-aabot po sa inyo ng sobre, buwan-buwan, ano po ang pakiramdam niyo? Bakit hindi niyo po binuksan?
I must admit that I was uncomfortable with those envelopes, but ang hirap din kasi I'm not sure if others are receiving. Parang ang hirap din. I didn't know if others are receiving. I cannot say. So Ang ginawa ko na lang is, I had this pouch that iniiwan ko lang sa office. Nilalagay ko lang doon yung mga binibigay sa akin na pera. Na
Sa pakiramdam po ninyo, para po saan yun?
ang feeling ko is, she has naman resources to give she has probably personal resources that she can share to her people. And I'm not really, ayoko mag-speculate, but the only thing I could say is I wasn't comfortable with it.
Hindi po ba kayo nagtataka? Kayo po yung head ng HOPE, ng procuring entity, tapos may natatanggap po kayo na buwan ng 50,000?
As I mentioned, it is uncomfortable, and that's precisely the reason why I wasn't opening it at all. I was just putting it in one pouch.
Bakit po walang envelope nung HR pa lang kayo? Tapos biglang nagka-envelope nung naging hope kayo?
I think it's like an allowance maybe for an extra work, because sometimes I have to stay until midnight to look at the documents.
If that is just an allowance, then the rest of the officers of DepEd should have their own envelopes as well.
Mr. Chair, that's precisely the reason why I did not open any of it. Because
I
that was
understand.
very uncomfortable on
I
my
understand. And that leads me to the next question, ma'am. Why were you so uncomfortable with the envelope when you believe that that is just an allowance?
part. Because, ma'am, I'm 40 years, Mr. Chair, I'm 40 years in government. The only time I have an ombudsman case is when I advised my principal not to sign an importation, when I was the deputy cabinet secretary, and I advised my principal not to sign an importation because there was no rice crisis. That's my only ombudsman. I have to protect that name. Self-made po kami. I come from Samar. I was a scholar since I was grade 1 until I took my PhD. So I have all reasons to protect my name, Your Honor. And I'm in the home stretch of my career. And then I'm being thrown into that position, which I have no control because I'm only studying it. So that's my...
Ma'am, I wish to remind you of the terminologies which you mentioned already, with all due respect po sa inyo, no? Because I want to elicit this information from you. Kanina po sabi nyo, the position, the job of hope is very difficult. Do you confirm?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And you did not open the envelope because you feel so uncomfortable. Do you confirm?
Yes.
And then recently you made mention na it was only once that I had this case with the ombudsman. Do you confirm?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also made mention that you wish to protect yourself. Do you confirm?
Yes.
And the
Mr.
reason,
Chair.
ma'am, is because you believe that that envelope is a bribe. Do you agree with me? Because
I'm
otherwise, you will not appreciate the job as difficult. You will not uncomfortable opening what you believe is allowance. You will not be thinking about the ombudsman case. You will not be thinking about protecting yourself. The reason why you are considering all these concerns is because you believe that the envelope is a bribe. Do you agree? Yes or no, ma'am?
It's kind of harsh word to use, bribe, because if
Or should I say, it is a means to influence your decision being the hope?
It could be.
You said yes to that? You said it could be. I wish to manifest, Mr. Chair, on the story, on the narration of the resource speaker about this envelope she received and she refused to open until the same is donated from February 2023 to September 2023 is a means actually to influence the decision of our resource speaker being the one who approved all the decision of the BAC in behalf of the DepEd Secretary. Tama po ba, ma'am?
There was only one instance that I could recall na but there was no one spoke to me about there was an instance where I tried to let a bidding lapse, but Um, but I ended up signing it because there was a protest. I'm not comfortable discussing it.
But I wish to state for the record, Mr. Chair, that with the narration of our resource speaker, she earlier manifested that she believes that those envelopes are means to influence her decision as hope.
I couldn't find a reason why I will have to go, you know.
What were you thinking during that time? Can you please share with us your thoughts? Ano pong iniisip nyo during that?
I was very sad. I spoke to, but it wasn't a surprise, Mr. Chair, because there were 6 people before me that went through that process. So I wasn't surprised. So what I did the night before when I got the text, I already prepared myself. But I'm human and I worked very well for the past year. So I was really very devastated with what they did to me. And that's also the reason why I refused initially to face this panel, because I said I'm so wounded as a bureaucrat. So baka siguro what was hurting is that when I left, they were trying to, marami kasing press that was running after me and asking why I left. My children and I flew to Guam for 3 days just to evade the press, which nandun na rin sila sa gate namin sa village. And I think what was hurting is that they were trying to justify my departure by saying that I was favoring certain suppliers, which I told
You don't believe that.
I told my kids.
You reject that.
I told my kids I left DepEd with my pride intact and with integrity because I have not favored any. I don't even speak to suppliers. If there are petitions or things that has to be settled at hope level, I go at the middle of DepEd where it's seen by everyone, and that's where I speak to the suppliers.
Last question, ma'am. Sasang-ayon po ba kayo if I would say na yung pagtanggi nyo kay Attorney Reynald Monsayak na pag-usapan na lang yung 2022 continuing fund ang dahilan kung bakit kayo pinagre-resign ni Attorney Zulueta?
That's very speculative, ma'am.
From your point of view, ma'am, it can be right, it can be wrong, but from your point of view, it could be the reason. Dahil tumanggi kayo na pag-usapan ang 2022 continuing fund, posible na ito ang dahilan kung bakit kayo pinag-resign ni Attorney Zulueta.
I was moved by the Vice President out because I was favoring some suppliers. And it hurt me so much because I have not spoken to any supplier. In fact, there was a supplier which I learned later was sister of our family lawyer, and a family doctor. And I did not make a decision on that specific case. I raised it to the office of the Vice President to make the decision, just to make sure that there's no doubt on your decision for certain suppliers. So I made a confidential memorandum to the President, to the Vice President, saying that there are allegations of bribe in this specific case, so I'm raising it to you to validate the issues. The reason that was given was a little shallow.
Okay. So you believe that the reasoning that you're favoring suppliers is shallow and belated. And you mentioned that she would give you the envelopes. Would you recall if the envelope had the marking hope, no? It was
Yes,
labeled as
yes,
hope.
Mr.
Was this
Chair.
typewritten? Was this printed?
No, it's written.
Written. Would the handwriting be familiar?
I'm still keeping those envelopes.
Oh, you still have the envelopes. Mr. Chair, may we request perhaps that these envelopes be produced as object evidence for this committee? Perhaps in a...
The envelope, I think, was already, the content of the envelope was already donated.
Yes.
But
Ye-
with respect to the envelope, you still have it in your possession. Tama po ba?
it's in my home.
Okay, so may we request USEC Mercado to please, dala po ba ninyo ngayon?
Hindi po.
Hindi.
Hindi po.
Hindi.
Hindi po.
Hindi. So siguro in the next scheduled hearing, may we request na pakidala po ninyo para ano po namin.
Meron pang next schedule.
Ma'am, pakilapit lang po ninyo yung microphone para medyo clear at maliwanag po. Thank you po.
So,
Please continue. Please proceed.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that would be very helpful and we'd really appreciate if you could produce that. That would be object evidence po if talagang handwritten po yan and if we're able to prove kung kaninong handwriting. This would just serve to verify po the veracity of your narration. So, meron pong envelopes that were labeled Hope. They were not labeled Miss Mercado. They were not labeled Ma'am Gloria po ba? Is that how you go? What is the name that you go by po for people familiar with you?
Glo.
Glo. So it didn't say Dearest Glo, it didn't say USEC
It's just
Mercado,
Hope.
just Hope. Just Hope. Okay, I'll come back to that po.
Give it a hard thought.
Of course, I mean, this is just testing to your personal knowledge. We have no idea, we have no clue kung talagang galing kay VP po yun. All that happens is that it is accompanied by that statement by ASEC Sunshine. Correct?
Siguro kaya mo nalilink doon kasi si ASEC Sunshine yung nagbibigay.
Because she was Heya at the time.
Yeah.
So you would assume from the Heya's closeness, proximity of both personal relation and by office. But I noticed during the interpellation of Congresswoman Luis Toro, you really had an apprehension. You said that bribery was too harsh a word.
It's just not in my language to say it's bribery because I have not experienced it.
And I would tend to agree, Mr. Chair, because generally when you speak of bribery, it's when you are offered a gift, offered compensation to entice you to do or not to do something that's within your duties. When a person is offered a gift by not for any act to do or not to do, but by mere virtue of your public office, would that be closer to what you were feeling at the time? Because there was no conversation. Walang sinabi naman po na itong envelope, gawin mo to, wag mong gawin to.
Wala
But it was
namang-
simply by virtue of your position. The envelope says it all.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And more
yes.
colloquially, kilala ang indirect bribery as payola. Did you have an inclination na ito ay payola?
No.
So you said yes to indirect bribery but no to payola. Would you care to explain?
It's those are words that are not in my vocabulary, so if you excuse me.
Of course, I will not belabor po. And there was no gift or compensation to ask of what to do and what not to do. One last question po on that. Would you know if other employees of DepEd received the same envelope? And would you know ano po yung nakasulat sa mga envelope po nila?
No. I would know of one, but the rest I don't know.
You know of one more. Would you be at liberty to divulge?
No.
Not the identifying marks, but at least yung level, yung position po niya. Was it the USEC level, ASEC level?
ASEC level.
ASEC level. So there would be confirmation of more than just the hope. Would you know kung ano po yung nakasulat sa envelope na yun?
No. No, we don't get to see because we're called one by one.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the good USEC for this, for her narration of the affidavit here and being forthright. I'd like to just reiterate our hope that the envelopes will be produced as object evidence for us.
Last question, ma'am. At least, Mr. Chair, I would know the Vice President is watching us because she just had a press conference and she said that she's denying giving former DepEd Undersecretary Gloria Mercado 50,000 for 9 months. And the Vice President saying that Mercado was let go because she used DepEd to solicit donations from the private sector amounting to 16 million without her knowledge. And she adds that she will provide the media with paper trail to back up her claim, describing Mercado as a disgruntled former DepEd official. I think, ma'am, given your long history and long service to the Republic, 40 long years, I think it's fair
It's
for you
very
to be
sad.
given the opportunity to reply to the Vice President.
I think I don't want to do this, but since siya na yung nagsabi, i-turn over ko na yung envelope. I-turn over ko na yung envelope. I-turn over ko na yung envelope. The envelopes where the money was.
Comsec,
So
Paki-
it's 9 envelopes.
kuha po yung envelope.
So it says hope and the amount is there. Kasi ang sakit naman nun, ordinaryo lang akong trabahante tapos inano ka ng vice president, di ba? It's very painful.
Ma'am, ilang taon na po kayo? I hope you don't mind. Gusto ko lang pong malaman kasi sabi po ninyo 40 years na po kayo in government.
I'm 65, sir, but
So when the time when you were appointed as USEC, noong 2022 ba? 2022? How old were you at
I
that time?
was 64.
64.
Yeah.
I'm sure